Okay, so today we're gonna take it pretty easy today. You have a test on Tuesday. We're gonna attempt to play Kahoot on Monday. So hopefully this goes well. For the drawing of the lines, I can't remember if I put one of these on the test, but you definitely need to know how to draw these anyway for the regions. You definitely need to know how to read them. So just remember when you're drawing the lines, first of all, the lines can never cross. And you put the lines where they belong. Meaning like for here, you had to squeeze in between the 1023 and the 1026 for the 1024. So just make sure yours look very similar to that. The one down below, I think people were, were you done with that one? All right, the one down below, it was a little tricky because they did throw in, it must be some sort of cold front down there by Oklahoma City. And it was much colder, much further south than we expected. With this 60 line, you could have done what I did here and end it and come back in, or you could have probably squeezed it in under there as well. So either way would be correct. Any questions with the lines? All right, then we are moving on to the station map here. So we have southwest 15 knots, smog, 3/4 of a mile, 43 degrees Fahrenheit, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 75% cloud cover, 1014.6, 0.6 inches of precipitation. Everyone good on that one, or do you have any questions? For this compare and contrast here, I did want you to draw in the H and the L, and remember that wind always blows from a high to a low. Air always sinks at a high, it moves out of a high, cool, clockwise, clear, and dry. I apparently did not put the answers here, but remember they're always opposite for low pressure. Air rises for a low, moves inward. It is warm, counterclockwise. It's going to be cloudy and wet. That kind of goes along with the fact that I told you when we went over this that I have never memorized the low pressure. I memorized high pressure, high, dry, cool, and clear, and then just do the opposite for low pressure. So that's why I accidentally left low pressure blank. How do clouds form? Remember, warm air rises, cools, hits its dew point, and water droplets form. What is indicated when dew point temperature and air temperature are close? That is when water droplets form, or it's going to rain. Also, what's the relative humidity when there's fog? 100%, not just fog, but any precipitation. And what happens when a front passes? The temperature is going to change. What type of air mass is located over Binghamton, New York? And there was some confusion with this yesterday. So Binghamton is right here. Now, this isn't asking what kind of air would have formed at Binghamton. If you remember when we did these, we said air formed at all of these other spots, and then that air blew into wherever we were living. So right now the air has blown into Binghamton, and it's asking what kind of air is currently over Binghamton. And the way we figure this out is we actually look at the weather at Binghamton. So you got to first decide, is Binghamton going to be warm or cold? And we look at the actual temperatures there, not thinking that normally Binghamton's near us and air is going to be colder near us. We have to look at the actual air that's there. And it says it's 70 degrees plus. And so 70, you're like, well, is that warm or cold? I mean, it's kind of cool for the summer, but warm for the winter. So you kind of got to look to see what just went by. And you can see that there was a warm front. The warm front is going, remember the bubbles point to where it's going, so it's going that way. So the warm front just passed over Binghamton. So Binghamton is warm. I also said Binghamton's going to be wet. Can you guys tell me how I knew Binghamton was wet from this? fully cloudy. And we know that like today, when it's fully cloudy out there, it's probably wet. So clouds are made out of water. So it's either wet or at least humid. So warm and wet is an MT. I did the same thing for Chicago, found Chicago. You see that it's got a temperature of 51, which is significantly colder. Or you can see that this cold front has already passed over Chicago. So it's going to be cold. And on the same note, it's 100% clear. So it's 0 clouds. That's typically when it's dry. So I said cool and dry, which is a CP. St. Louis, it asks, what's the present weather? Now remember, when we're asking about present weather, we're not asking for the full wet forecast. We're looking for which symbol does it have. And the fact that St. Louis doesn't have a symbol, it's nice out or clear. What would the humidity be in Watertown? So Watertown's labeled right there. It has a temperature and dew point both of 60. We know that when temperature and dew point are the same, it's raining, 100% relative humidity. How did I figure this out? Temperature and dew point are equal. With these arrows, the key with the arrows, it's asking how the air moves around a low and a high pressure. Remember, it always moves clockwise around a high and out of a high. And for a low, it's going to go counterclockwise and into a low. So which one is showing that? Clockwise out of a high and counterclockwise into a low. That's answer 2. Now here asks, which isobar represents the correct location of the 1004 millibars and the 1008 and the 1024? I had heard that this was a little hard to see. The key is that the L, which is the low pressure center right there, which was located a little bit, it was in between Buffalo and Watertown, was the L. Because where do they put the L? The lowest pressure. It is the center of the low pressure. That's the giveaway. We needed to find where the center of the circles were. Here they've got, first of all, there's not even like the center, it's not even in the right order. We've got a highest pressure up here by the L. That can't be right. This one has the millibars going across the paper. That's not how pressure looks. So these both have circles, but this one's got the center of the lowest one over here. This one's got the center around Watertown. That's what you were looking for. So that's answer 1. And then if the front continues on their current path, name 2 cities that will experience colder temperatures. So if the cold front continues, remember the cold front is moving in the direction of the arrows. So it's pointing at Binghamton's about to get colder, Washington, D.C., Richmond, and New York City will all get colder soon. Any of the other cities like Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Charleston, they've already gotten the cold front. So they're not going to get it. They've already had it. So I wrote down any of the cities there, you only needed 2. And then finally, we wanted which way the wind's blowing between Cincinnati and Boston. So here's Cincinnati. Boston is way up here. So to get from Cincinnati to Boston, we're going to first cross a cold front, then a warm front, and Boston's actually going to be a little cooler. But the key is that the wind is blowing from Cincinnati towards Boston. So crossing off wrong answers. It can't be blowing towards Cincinnati. It's going the opposite way. Same here. These 2 are wrong. Then looking here, remember we always want the warm air to rise. So we need to figure out, is the warm air over by Cincinnati or in between Cincinnati and Boston? Cincinnati is behind a cold front. So that's going to be cold. The warm air is going to be in between. That's answer 4. Warm air always rises. Guys, I know I'm going fast. Does anybody need any more explanation for any of these? All right. They did ask you to draw the 10, the 50, the 60, and the 70 degree isobars. Oh, and then it asked you to calculate the gradient, which I did not do. So gradient from the front of our reference table is change. And this time it's going to be change in pressure divided by distance. And we were doing it between Richmond and Hatteras. So Richmond is 50, Hatteras is 60. So the change is 10 degrees. I'm sorry, these are not change in pressure, change in temperature. So 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and we need to quickly do the distance between those two places. They are approximately 300 kilometers apart. That kilometer, nope, 300 miles. And 10 divided by 300 is not math that I normally do. Oh, I can do, is 10 divided by 300. 0.03 degrees Fahrenheit per mile. And then that answer was not there. That is not on the test tomorrow or on Friday, whatever day, Tuesday. It's not on the test on Tuesday, but that is something you'll need to know for the final exam, or the regents, I should say. State the air pressure at millibars shown at Miami. So Miami's pressure is listed as 208. That gets a 10 out front. Don't forget to put the decimal. Is Cincinnati a low or a high pressure? So you find Cincinnati. Cincinnati is 100% cloudy. So remember, high, dry, cool, and clear. So if it's cloudy, it's a low pressure. So cloudy, and the wind is blowing counterclockwise. If you look, that one's going that way, this one's going that way. So it is going counterclockwise around Cincinnati. And latitude on the X, temperature on the Y. Lower latitudes have a higher temperature. Line goes down. Any questions yet? All right, last page. I mentioned this when we learned about an occluded front. I don't ever expect them to ask you any questions except for this one about an occluded front. They show you a picture. You see that they're all on the same side, match it up to your reference table. That's an occluded front, not a stationary. Stationary would have had the triangles and circles opposite each other. Relative humidity, remember that is not given on here. But because the temperature and the dew point are the same, we know that it's raining, which we know humidity is 100%. Wind direction, they specifically said from, this is the northwest, there's 10, 25 knots. So 10 for each hole, 5 for the half, and it's got a dot, so it's raining. Doing the temperature and the dew point here, it would be 18 degrees Celsius for the dew point and 14 degrees Celsius for this one. Same thing with relative humidity, that's 40%. So let's double check. So the difference is 5. So did anybody else get that? Okay, let's double check. You used 26 and 21. 21's not even on there, is it? Why can't I find the page? Yeah, 21's not on there, so you didn't do that.
Well, I went with 20 and 22.
Yeah, it's not on there though. It only goes up to 15. It only goes up to 15. It doesn't go to 26 and 21. So you couldn't have done that. So 26 and a difference of 5. Bring your fingers together. Yeah, but so you couldn't have, so what numbers did you use then? Oh, you used 21 and 5. Got it. Sorry, I thought you meant you used 26 and 21. I see what you're saying. Yeah, so make sure you use the dry bulb. My mistake for what you were saying, but yeah, very careful. That's really important that you use the right numbers. We have not talked about this, but in the last 40 years, weather satellites have improved. Hopefully that was kind of common sense. You can cross off 21. That is nothing we are going to do even at all this year. It's just not that I haven't taught it to you yet.
What is that?
I don't know the answer. I don't have a chart that tells me the 10 to the negative 9th meters.
I thought it was ultraviolet.
Well, why would you know that unless you Googled it? You just, no, you never learned it. That is not, we learned about the rays, but we never, or you have learned about the rays. We will learn about the rays, but we will not put wavelengths with them. And finally, why are at the beaches located on the southern shore of Long Island considerably cooler than inland? And that's because there's always going to be a sea or a land breeze. But during the day, there's always a sea breeze that develops because of the heat of the water is lower than the specific heat of the land. Any questions? All right, for the rest of the period, we are going to make ourselves a review sheet, and let me get those for you. So back at the beginning of our chapter 7 packets, we started off the year with temperature. What should we include to review about temperature?
The higher the temperature is, the hotter it is.
Do we really need to put that in the review sheet?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you that's not on the test. I don't think we need to put that on there. But you're right. It is a measure average kinetic energy, but that is not on the test.
We should put down the measurement tool.
Let's do the measurement tool things. I agree. Let's do it for all of them. So there are 5 instruments we need to know for this chapter. 1, I hope you know already. No, we're going to start in order. Am I spelling? No, I got it right. Thermometer, what does that measure? Okay. The next thing we learned about was pressure. So what measures pressure? No, but make sure I can at least figure out what word you're trying to say. Barometer is easy, it's barometer. Thermometer is easy, it's thermometer. Let's do wind vane. Hopefully you got that one. What is a wind vane measure? And what's the other one for wind? No. Begins with an A. A-N-E. M-O meter. That is wind speed. I don't think they would make you know how to spell that off the top of your head. So if that was the answer, it was probably in the reading or labeled, or it's going to be a multiple choice. Same with the last instrument we need, which I even need to look up how to spell it. What is it? Begins with an S. Yeah. No, sling. S-Y-C-H-R-O meter. What does a sling psychrometer measure? It actually does 2 different things. Dew point. It does measure the dry and the wet bulb. And what's the other one? It's up underneath that one. Yeah, it's the relative humidity. Oh, I don't have room. So hopefully you could have got that. You do need to know those. I think I have almost all of them on the test. If they're not all on the test, they're all talked about on the test. So if they're not all answers, they are talked about on the test. You do need to know those and know what they look like. For what a barometer looks like, we had a picture of it in our notes. Remember, when the air pressure pushes down on the bowl of mercury, the mercury goes up the tube. So that's how we get higher pressure. So you do need to know all of the instruments. What I do think you, for temperature, need to know that warm air, what does warm air do? Warm air rises. And because it rises, what kind of pressure? Warm air has low pressure. That comes up. Oh, as you guys talk about this a lot. On the same note, what does cold air do? Cold air sinks. And because it sinks, cold air has high pressure. Oh, I should have printed the test to see what else was on there. Make sure you know how to convert back and forth between Celsius and Fahrenheit, use and Kelvin. By using ESRT page 13. All right, for pressure, actually one more thing. What is an isotherm? What is an isobar? Nope. Isotherms, isobars, make sure you know them. We already talked about the instrument for pressure. And make sure you can convert. Inches of mercury to millibars. ESRT page 13. We already said warm air rises, low pressure, cold air sinks, high pressure. But also make sure you know the graph. Altitude and pressure. Guys, as altitude goes up, what happens to pressure? It does get lower. Higher in the atmosphere we are, the less pressure. Which way does wind blow? from high to low pressure. When is the wind speed the greatest? How do we know? No. How do we tell by looking at a map? Which kind of lines? Isobars. Isobars. Close together. When is it gentle? Land, water, during the day.
What's that bottom word say? The wind speed.
Apart,
What?
gentle, isobars spread apart.
Gentle.
Where's it hot during the day, the land or the water? Hotter. Colder. Because it's hotter, what kind of pressure do we have? Low on the land, high on the water. Wind blows high to low. Since you guys hate writing, we will not include the other version of this, but make sure you know the opposite of this is true at nighttime. We still have a few more things to include. I'll wait till everybody gets caught up on this front half. With high pressure, which way does the air move? 3 ways. High pressure. Clock is high on the wall. What else do we need to know? Out. And because it's high pressure, it's moving down. With high pressure, what kind of weather do we have? High, dry, cool, and clear weather. Low pressure, which way does the air move? What kind of weather do we have? Wet temperature. Warmer and cloudy. Dew point and temperature. What do we know when they're equal? Okay, when they're equal, we'll have 100% relative humidity. Why? Because it's raining.
Top right one.
Top right what?
Top right box.
Make sure you can calculate relative humidity and dew point from ESRT, page 14. Only learn 2 more things after this. If we have CP weather, what kind of weather can we expect? Dry and cold. How about CT? Out wet, dry and warm. The C tells us it's over continents and it is dry. How about MP? Wet and cold. MT? Wet and warm. We could, if you want to include, sorry, CA, dry and very cold. And for fronts, remember, warm air rises. Make sure you're able to label which ones the warm air is rising. Honestly, I think that is all, well, and then I should say, make sure you know your weather station models. No homework for the weekend. Make sure you're ready for the test on Tuesday.